Hi everyone, my name is Mandy Medbourn, and I'm the Health and Human Sciences Educator with Purdue Extension in Stark and Pulaski counties. Today we are going to continue on our journey through NEFI's High School Financial Planning Program, and we are going to talk today about goals. Here's what you are going to need, and here are some ground rules for you that are going to help you be successful as we go through these slides together. So the very first thing that you are going to need to do is we need you to download lesson 1.2, and that is the goals lesson pack, and that is a Word document. You can find this by going to highschoolfinancialplanningprogram.org, going to the Students tab, going to tab 1, Money Management, and then going to lesson 1.2, Goals Lesson Pack. One thing that will be helpful as well is if you complete our pre and post surveys. These are completely optional, but they really help us as educators to see what you have learned. Also, another thing that's going to be helpful for you is if you have a pencil and some scratch paper. That's going to help you as you make notes, as you do math equations, and in general, as you just go through this curriculum with us. The notebook and the scratch piece of paper and the pencil, that's going to help you so you can be able to do the activities as needed. Other things that will be helpful for you is, first of all, if you would put your phone on silent. I know it's hard sometimes to put your phone away, but we ask that you would help yourself by putting that away so it won't be a distraction to you. Exit out of your email, maybe turn off music, shut your door, whatever it helps for you to focus, we ask that you would please do that. Also, if you find yourself needing time to pause and take a break, go ahead and do that as well. If you ever need to stop, just go ahead and pause, and you can always come back later and rewind the curriculum and the PowerPoints as well. So today we are going to be talking about SMART goals. So by the end of the lesson today, you should be able to figure out a plan to achieve personal financial goals. Okay, so the very first thing that we would like you to do is an activity, teen spending. So I want you at home to think about in what situations might a teen spend more than $100. So you can think of that in a couple of different ways. You can think about maybe this semester. What might be some things that this semester of school you might need to save up $100 and something that would cost that amount of money. Also think about within the next 12 months. What might be some things that you might need to save up for within the next year? And then also think long term. What might be some goals or some things that you might be spending $100 a year from now? This could be anything. I'll give you a couple of examples. One of them might be a senior school trip that you would need to save up some money for. That might be a long-term goal. Another might be saving up to purchase a prom dress. So again, those might be just a couple of things to think about, but I want you guys to just take a minute and to think about in what situations might a teen spend more than $100. So on your screen, you will see this little red icon that says pause the video to complete. So whenever you see that, I would like you to go ahead and pause the video and complete the activity. So this is where your scratch piece of paper and your pencil will come in handy. So go ahead, pause this video, complete this activity by coming up with a couple of things that you might spend more than $100 on. So go ahead and pause now. Okay, so what kinds of things did you come up with? Did you find that maybe there were more short-term things that you needed to spend, or short-term things that you might have spent $100 on, or did you find maybe more long-term things that came to your mind? This is just to help get you to start thinking about things that you might need to be saving up money for, and then now we're going to talk a little bit about how you can reach those goals. Okay, so we're going to do a quick preview real quick before we get started. All right, so today, some of the questions that we are going to answer are, number one, how can your personal goals be achieved through money goals? So a lot of times, personal goals and financial goals balance each other out. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to write specific and measurable goals that are realistic for your current situation. Also, one thing I want you guys to think about is how do you write an effective financial goal? So that's something that I not only want you to think about, but by the end of today, we should be able to answer that, and you guys will be able to write effective financial goals. And then also, I want you to think about how do you prioritize your actions while working to achieve several goals at the same time. So you might have a short-term goal. You might have something that you would say, within the next month, here is something I would like to save for. Or you might have a long-term goal. You might think in 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 5 years from now, here are some things that I would like to save up for. So we are going to help you prioritize those goals so you can make each of them a reality. And so by the end of today, you're going to use what you have learned to write financial goals for big ticket items. Okay, so now we're going to start off with a quote. The quote is from musician Brian Luttrell, and the quote is, "Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you will land amongst the stars." So when it comes to setting goals, whether financial goals or personal goals, you want to start the goal by thinking about the end result. So that might sound a little silly, right? You want to begin thinking about identifying your desired end before you even start. So I'm going to give you an example. So think about this. Think about if you had time and you wanted to plan a party for your best friend's birthday. Would you go ahead and just plan it at the last minute? Of course not. There are some things that you would need to think about for the end result before you even start. So now let's think. What might be a couple of things that if you were planning your best friend's birthday party, what might be some things that you would need to think about? A couple of those would be, the first thing, you'd probably want to be able to get the okay from his or her parents. That would be something that would probably be important when planning a party, especially if it's taking place at their house. What else would we need to think about? We would also need to think about who we might want to invite. And not only who would we want to invite, but how are we going to get them the invitations? Another thing you might need to think about is what type of music would be at the party, what type of food might be there, and then also, don't forget at the end, somebody has to clean everything up. So again, you're going to want to think about what your goal is. So in this case, it's to throw a great birthday party for your best friend. But then also, it's going to require you to work backwards to think about everything you need to do to make sure your goal becomes a reality. So now we're going to talk a little bit about SMART goals. And so one of the things I want you guys to do is in your student guide, I would like for you to go to page 14. And we're going to read a little bit about Michael and Selena's goals. So I'll give you a second to go ahead and get there. You can pause if you need to as well. Okay, do you have page 14 of your student guide pulled up? Let's read a little bit about Michael and Selena's goals. Selena mentions to her older brother that she wants to save some money before she graduates from high school. When he asks her how much, she doesn't have a solid answer. When Michael tells a coworker about needing some new tires, he is shocked to learn from her that a set of tires cost about $500. So, what do you think about Michael and Selena's goals? Do you think that they'll achieve their goals? Why or why not? So, in thinking about whether or not they will achieve their goals, let's think about and talk about SMART goals. So as you see on your screen, SMART goals, S-M-A-R-T. This is going to be a tool for you in helping you to make goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So let's go through these just a little bit. Okay, so when thinking about your goals, one of the very first things you want to be able to do is to figure whether or not your goal is specific. So in this case, I'm going to give you for each of the S-M-A-R-T, I'm going to give you some questions for you to think about. And then also we're going to use Michael as an example. And so that will help us think through whether and how Michael can make his goal a SMART goal. So one of the first questions to think about is what exactly needs to be accomplished? So maybe you say that your goal is to save money. Well, saving money is not only a great habit, that is something that's going to help you on your financial journey, but is it really specific? There are lots of things that we don't know. We don't know how much money you plan to save. We don't know where you're going to keep your money that's saved. And we also don't know, why are you saving the money? Are you saving it for something specific, or are you just saving it as an emergency fund for a rainy day? So what exactly needs to be accomplished? Asking that question is going to help make your goal specific. And in turn, it's going to help make your goal a SMART goal. Also thinking about who else will be involved and where will this take place. Now, depending on your goal, some of these questions might vary a bit, but I also want you to think about, why do you want to accomplish this goal? A lot of times people will say that their goals, they will have different goals, and it will start with, well, I probably should do this, or well, I should probably save for that. And if you are saying to yourself, I should, that might not be the best goal for you at this time. Your goals might look different than your friends' goals, and they might look different than the goals that your family has for you. That's okay, because we're talking about your specific goals. So I want you to think about something that is important to you and ask yourself, why do you want to accomplish it? All of these questions will help make your goal more specific and in turn make it a SMART goal. So now let's go to Michael. Let's read a little bit about him. Mike needs to replace all 4 tires on his car because the treads are worn out. So Michael is making this goal a bit more specific. He could have just said that he needed new tires, but is that specific enough? Here we see that he needs to replace all 4 tires, so he's specific about how many tires he needs to replace, and he needs to replace them on his car, and he needs to do that because the treads are worn out. So it's also good for identifying needs versus wants. In this case, Michael's goal is a need. His treads are worn out and he needs new tires. Okay, the next thing I want you to think about is your goal measurable? So one of the first questions you should ask is, how will I know when I have succeeded? And I also want you to ask, how much change needs to occur and how many actions will it take to accomplish this goal? So let's go back up to the, how will I know I have succeeded? You need to be able to measure your goal. So, for example, if your goal is to go on a ski trip with your friends and you need to save up $500, how can you tell if that's measurable or not? Well, you have a specific amount of money, $500, and you'll be able to tell when you've accomplished it because you'll be out skiing with your friends. You will have reached that goal of saving the money, and you'll be putting it towards what your goal said that it was going to be put towards, going on a ski trip. And make sure to bundle up and stay warm. So now let's hear a little bit about Michael. It says here that Mike needs to have tires on his car with treads that provide good traction when driving in snow and rain conditions. So here are 3 things that Michael is going to do to help make sure that his goal is measurable. The first thing is to find out how much new tires will cost. So on Mike's part, this is requiring a little bit of research. He needs to figure out not only the fact that he has 4 tires that need to be replaced, but how much each of them are going to cost. And he can do that by not just looking at one place, but maybe he wants to look into 2 or 3 places to compare prices. And that's going to help him financially in the long run as well, because he might be saving money. Another thing that he needs to do is to actually save the money to buy the tires. And then the third thing he needs to do is to schedule an appointment to replace the tires. So just saying that he's going to save the money is not enough. His goal needs to be measurable, and he knows he will have accomplished it once he has saved the money, done the research, and scheduled an appointment to replace and put on the new tires. Now, the next question you want to ask yourself is your goal attainable? So what exactly does that mean? Let's go through some of these questions. The first one is, do I have or can I get the resources needed to achieve this goal? So maybe your goal is to work out 2 times a week at the gym, but you might not have a gym membership. So that might not be very realistic, and that might not be an attainable goal. But maybe instead your goal could be that you work out 2 times a week by running outside, or maybe you could borrow some weights from a friend. So think about how you can make sure that your goal is realistic and it's attainable. Another thing to think about is the goal a reasonable stretch for me? So neither completely out of reach nor too easy. So it might be an unrealistic goal. For example, if you need to save up $100 or so to replace a part on your car, and you want to have that done within a week, but you only work maybe 1 day a week. Do you think the math would work out for you to be able to replace that part in your car within a week? Maybe not. That might not be very realistic. And so you want to think about how you can make your goals attainable and realistic. Maybe it's more realistic that you work for a couple weeks and save up a little bit of money to replace that part on your car. And then another thing I want you to think about is, are the actions I plan to take likely to bring success? So again, you want to set yourself up for success. Now, let's hear a little bit about Michael. So Mike has money saved and he's also working, so he can pay for the new tires. So awesome job, Mike, right? One of the first things it says is he not only has money saved, but he's also working. Now, if Michael didn't have any money saved, nor if he wasn't working at all, he probably wouldn't be able to save up and pay for the new tires. He can also compare prices at 3 businesses near his house. So again, Michael is going back to the research. He's thinking about, is his goal attainable? And in this case, it sounds like it is. Okay, now I want you guys to think too about whether or not your goal is relevant. What does this mean? So here are a couple questions I want you to think through. The first is this a worthwhile goal for me right now? Again, that also goes back to, what are your priorities and what are the things that you are working on? You might have 2 different goals. Maybe one of your goals is to save up $20 to buy a new jacket. And maybe your other goal is to save up, say, maybe $200 to rent a cabin with your friends for a senior weekend trip. If you are spending your money, which goal are you going to focus on first? Which is the most worthwhile goal? Also, is it meaningful to me? And that goes back to what I had mentioned before about, if you're thinking, well, I should do this, it probably isn't very meaningful to you. So I want you to think about what you want to accomplish. Maybe it's to save up for college or a trade school, or maybe it's to be able to buy your best friend a gift for her birthday. Remember that fun party you're throwing her? So again, I want you to think about whether or not it's not only worthwhile for you to focus on right now, but also if it's meaningful to you. Another thing to think about is, will it delay or prevent me from achieving a more important goal? So again, that's something back to the example of saving up for a trip versus maybe buying a new jacket. If you decide to spend $20 on a jacket, maybe a jacket that you don't even really need, right? It could be a jacket that's a want instead of a need. That $20 maybe could be better spent putting that towards your trip with your friends. So again, you might have to make choices and prioritize, but I want you to think about, will it delay or prevent you from achieving a more important goal? And then another thing, am I willing to commit to achieving this goal? We want you to feel like you are setting yourself up for success. And that's one of the whole points of setting SMART goals. You are setting yourself up for success by making things more specific, or making sure that your goal is relevant. All of these things come together to really help you to make sure your goal is something you can accomplish. So now let's hear a little bit about Michael. Mike wants to replace his current worn-out tires for new tires. This will improve fuel efficiency and reduce the risk of having a flat tire at an inconvenient time. So, Michael's goal is relevant. His current tires are worn out, and they're not going to be safe for him to drive on. And so instead, he's going to get new tires, and that's going to improve his fuel efficiency, and over time, that's going to help save him some money. So those are some good questions to ask if your goal is relevant. And finally, last but definitely not least, I want you to ask yourself, is your goal time bound? And this is a very important one, and we're going to go through a couple questions to explain why. So, one of the first things you want to ask yourself is, what is the deadline for reaching this goal? This is really important. Remember how we talked about we need to work backwards from our goals? Here, giving yourself a timeline really helps. So, if you say to yourself, well, I would really like to be able to buy presents for my family for Christmas, okay? You need to think about what your deadline is. So maybe you want to save $100 to be able to buy gifts for your family at Christmas. But you need to know what your deadline is, right? Maybe your deadline is Christmas Eve to save up that money, but at that point, it might be too late to go shopping. So maybe the deadline for reaching your goal needs to be about a month before Christmas. That way you will have plenty of time to save up money, and then also you have time to go shopping as well. And so say if you tell yourself, I have 3 months to save up $100 for presents for my family for Christmas. Then you can do the math and work backwards and figure out how much money you need to save per month. And even from there, you can figure out how much money you need to save per week to be able to make that a reality. You also need to think about, when do I need to take action? And also, what can I do today? What are small steps that I can do today to reach my goal tomorrow? So maybe your goal is to save up, say, $100 to buy presents for your family for Christmas. And you're working, you have a job, maybe you have some money saved, but what is something that you can do today to make that actually happen? Maybe that means perhaps maybe you go out and get a coffee 3 times a week, or maybe twice a week after school you go to Dairy Queen and you get ice cream. Maybe that's something where you can cut back on some of those trips, and that way you'll have some extra money saved so you can reach your goal sooner. So let's figure out what Mike is doing to help make his goal time-bound. It says here that Mike wants to replace his tires soon, preferably by the end of next month. But by the end of this week, he will request 3 quotes to compare tire prices. So this is a perfect example of how Michael is again working backwards to help meet his desired end. So his goal in the end is to have 4 new tires for his vehicle, but he needs to know how much that's going to cost him. And so he's going to request 3 quotes to compare tire prices. Once he knows how much they're going to cost, then he can be able to figure out exactly how much he is going to need. Okay, now we're going to do another activity. So I want you guys to look at the slide right in front of you where it says Goal Makeover. So here we have 2 goals, or we have 2 people with different goals, Selena and Michael. And so I'm going to read some of their goals out loud, and I want you to think about what is wrong with their goals. Is there anything wrong? Do you think that they're smart goals? And if not, how do you recommend that they can make improvements to make their goal a SMART goal? So first, let's look at Selena. It says here that Selena's goal is to save $200 for a trip to the outlet mall. It also says one of her goals is to buy a new MP3 player, or whatever type of music device she likes to listen to her music on. And now let's look at Michael. We'd already mentioned about Michael's goal for tires, but here's 2 new ones. One of Michael's goals is to save money for college next year. And then another one is to buy a new computer in January. So again, what do you think? Do you think there's anything wrong with these goals? Do you think maybe we can help them make some improvements to make them smart? Let's focus on that now. Okay, so here's what I would like for you to do. I would like you to go to activity 1.6, Smart Goal Makeover. And so we are going to help Michael and Selena out by helping make their goals SMART goals. So I'd like you to type at the top of your worksheet your name and your date. And so we're going to help them set themselves up for success with their goals. So here are the directions. I would like you to rewrite Michael and Selena's statements into SMART goals. And then it says to compare your changes with a classmate or examples online. If you're doing this with others in a classroom setting, that's great. Take some time to compare answers. But if not, you can go online to highschoolfinancialplanningprogram.org and compare some of your answers there. So it says the goal, it has Selena and Michael's goals, and then it has a space for you to make their goal a SMART goal. So, as it says in the little red box, you can pause the video to complete. Don't worry, I'll be here when you get back. So take some time to go ahead and pause and fill that out right now. Okay, so you're back. Did you find that activity easy, or did you think it was a little bit more difficult? Remember, with SMART goals, we want them to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. If you had trouble doing the worksheet, feel free to go back a few slides and rewind, and go ahead and look at some of those examples for how to make your goals SMART goals. Okay, now we have time for another activity. This one's going to be fun, I promise. So here's what I would like you to do. I would like you to look where it says SMART Goal Rework. So go ahead and find on your student guide. I believe that's page 15 of your student guide. So go ahead and put your name and date at the top. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit more practice in coming up with SMART goals and how to take an original goal and also make it SMART. So here's what I would like for you to do. I'm going to give you a goal, and I would like you to write that original goal down. Or in this case, you might be typing into a computer. So here's your goal. Are you ready? Your goal is to buy a new pair of shoes. So I want you in a second to go ahead and pause the video and complete this worksheet. You're going to put your original goal, which is to buy a pair of shoes, and then you're going to revise it. So how you're going to figure out how to revise it is by going through the SMART Goal Guide below. So it's going to have some different questions for how you can take that goal and make it a SMART goal. So go ahead and pause the video when you're ready to complete, and then we'll go over it together. Okay, all finished? Did you find that difficult, or was it easy for you? Sometimes we might find it a bit difficult to work on SMART goals, but one of the great things about doing SMART goals is the more we practice, the better we get. So let's go through some of this together. So the original goal was to get a new pair of shoes. So let's start with specific. How can we make this a bit more specific? Now, let's see. We already said that we wanted to get a new pair of shoes, but maybe we could specify what type of shoes. So maybe we want to buy new running sneakers, or maybe we want to get new sandals for the beach this summer. That could be one way you can make your goal a bit more specific. Another thing that you can do is look at measurable. So how can we make sure our goal is measurable? So we could start by asking ourselves, how much are the shoes and how long do I have to save? So maybe your shoes are, say, $50, but the sales guy told you that next week they're gonna go on sale for 30% off. So you can do the math and figure out how much time you have to save if you would like to get those shoes. So that's another way to make sure that your goal is measurable. Now let's talk about attainable. So what resources do I have available to achieve my goal? So maybe you have some money saved, but maybe you need to bring in some extra income. Maybe it's something where you could get a part-time job, you could walk your neighbor's dog, maybe you could babysit or mow a lawn. There's lots of different ways that you could make it attainable by bringing in some extra income to help you save up money for your shoes. Now, let's talk about how to make this goal relevant. Here are some things to think about. It might be a tough question to ask, but it might be time to ask, do I really need a new pair of shoes right now? So this is a good time to think about needs versus wants. Maybe you think, I don't really need a new pair of shoes. And the money that I would be saving towards a new pair of shoes, that's something that maybe I could put that money somewhere else towards a different goal. Or maybe you think, my old running sneakers are getting really ratty and I kind of need some new ones. Or maybe you think, I'm gonna be going on a hiking trip soon and I don't even have hiking boots. So maybe that is something that it is relevant to your situation right now. But it's a good question to ask yourself to help make your goal a SMART goal. And finally, let's think about time bound. So a question to ask yourself is, when do I need to get these shoes? So you might say, well, I want them right now. I would love to have these shoes immediately, but it might take some time to save up for. So again, if you're getting hiking shoes for a hiking trip in 2 months, that means you have 2 months to save up. or maybe realistically a month and a half, so you have some time to do a little research to find which kind you like. So anyways, hopefully you guys found this exercise easy and fun. Again, if you found it difficult, it might take some time and practice, but the more you practice making goals SMART, the easier it's going to become. Okay, so plan ahead and delayed spending. Let's talk a little bit about different types of goals. So, as you see here, there are 3 different types of goals. We have short-term goals. So these are goals that are up to about 3 months. It's something that it's a goal you want to accomplish in 3 months or less. We also have medium-length goals, and so these might be goals that you would like to accomplish in 3 months to a year, or even long-term goals. So these would be goals that might take more than a year for you to accomplish. And so sometimes long-term goals can seem daunting and maybe even overwhelming, or maybe even it might seem a little bit impossible to you, but it makes it easier when they're broken up into small and manageable chunks. Okay, so one thing I want you guys to think about, if you have more than one goal, you're gonna need to set some priorities. So think about this. On a scale of 1, so not at all, to 5, which is extremely, how important is achieving this goal to me? And so when you think about that, one thing to think about is, again, if you have a short-term goal of, I would like to be able to go to the movies with my friend on Friday night, right? And maybe if you go all out, if you go to the movies and you get popcorn and pop and maybe nachos are my favorite, that might be something that it might cost a certain amount of money. Let's say maybe $20. And then you have another goal in which you want to be able to, let's go back to the prom example. If you would like to be able to buy a tux for prom or to get a new dress and to get your hair done, that might be something that will cost a significantly higher amount of money. Now, going to the movies, that might be really fun, but you might want to make your priority saving up and paying for prom. So again, I want you to think about setting priorities if you have more than one goal. What is the most important to you right now? What is your priority, and where do you really want to focus your attention? So when it comes to all types of goals, so short goals, medium goals, long-term goals, they all require one thing, and that's delayed gratification. So the only difference in those is how long you delay. So the further away from your goal you are, the more commitment and patience it's going to take for you to reach that goal. So anyways, hopefully that gives you a little bit of guidance when it comes to setting priorities and SMART goals. Okay, so you've had some practice working on others' goals like Michael and Selena's and the shoe example I gave you. Now it's your turn to figure out how to set SMART goals for yourself. So, are you ready for my challenge? Here we go. Here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you to create at least 3 financial goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant to your life, not your friend's life or your family's life, but your life, and also make sure it's time bound. So again, I want you guys to set 3 goals. Now, I'm going to encourage you to pick one short-term goal, one medium-term goal, and one long-term goal, but if you want to go back and forth between them, don't worry, I won't tell. So go ahead and you can pause this video to complete. If you need to go back and look at some of those SMART goals examples where it breaks down the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound examples, you can click back a couple of slides, or you can look in your student guide for more information. But this is where it becomes personal and applicable to you. And that's what I want for you. I want you to be able to set yourself up for success when creating your goals. So go ahead and pause the video to complete. And whenever you're done, I'll be right here waiting. All right, you're done. So how did that go? Did you find that you had a lot of goals that you wanted to accomplish, or was it kind of hard for you to figure out what you wanted to do? Remember, in your last lesson, we talked about values and what are things that are important to you. Thinking about those things, that is going to help you when it comes to creating your SMART goals and figuring out what your priorities are and what matters to you. So again, congratulations. Thank you for going on this journey with us through module and lesson 1-2 with money management, figuring out your goals. Hopefully you found this helpful and beneficial. And again, we request that if you choose to do so, please go ahead and fill out that post survey, the pre and post survey. Again, with the high school financial planning program, if you have any questions or you would like more resources, those are all online as well. Or you can ask your instructor that you might have to help you with this. So thank you for joining me. I had a lot of fun being with you. And so, yeah, hopefully you guys learned some new things about setting SMART goals for what you would like to accomplish. So good luck on your goals, and I'm excited to hear hopefully how your goals go really great. So thank you so much.